and we are back. Welcome back, everyone. This is your host, Scott Trout, for Between Two Worlds, a podcast about belief, unbelief, and everything in between. I am very excited to be back with you all. You might not know this, but we've been taking just a little bit of a hiatus from recording. This is our first time back in a bit. This is due to school season. Joey's in school. I'm working with students. And so, yeah, we've been releasing episodes, but haven't been recording. Now we're back. We're very excited. And we're here with our new good friend, Sterre. And he'll introduce himself and we'll talk about how we know him. But we're very excited to bring this episode to you. We've been really enjoying doing this and hearing some feedback about previous episodes. We're actually even going to get into some of that today. And that is the ultimate hope for this podcast, that we interview stories, we interview guests, but then we also hear from you, our community, and that we start to promote dialogue. That's the idea of this podcast, is we're promoting dialogue. So thanks for those of you out there who've been a part of that, and let's keep it going. So with all that said, would like to welcome Sterre. Thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
It's an honor.
And then, of course, I cannot forget my partner in crime out here, my co-host,
Joey.
Joey, it's always good to have you here, and I'm very excited to keep recording with you. So, boys, let's do a little bit of the box ourselves in introduction, that what you believe in with a little bit of a qualifier. I will start. Everyone, you are going to get used to these, but I try to change them up a little bit. I am a believer in Christianity who is trying to figure out how much free will and choice do I actually have in life. Hopefully that'll get answered.
My God, that's that is one way to box yourself in, man.
Joey, since you talked, you're next.
No, I am a what they call unbeliever, and I believe in everything that has to do with food.
Unpacking yours, Joey, would always be fun. What does he mean by that? Okay, Sterre?
That's a very respectable label you give yourself there. I like it. I also would consider myself an unbeliever, a non-believer, agnostic, maybe. That's fascinated and maybe a little bit obsessed with optimizing everything about my life.
So behind me, for those of you looking at the YouTube video, which we're still hoping to release those, I have a funky looking wall, and it looks like I've got two windows on the inside, and you're like, what is that? It is because I, and mostly my friend Joel, are building a wall for our baby. So this is going to be baby room. Maybe I'll show you, listeners. Well, that's the wall. And then to my left shoulder over here, the other wall, a little L shape. And building in Amsterdam is quite intense in that it's different than what I'm used to, but I'm not really used to much. I'm not much of a builder. But yeah, on both my walls, I've got neighbors, and top and ceiling, I've got neighbors, and there's not this kind of like house is your own house, and what you do in those walls, no one can hear. So yeah, drilling, I wanted to let my neighbors know, hey, gonna be doing some things, gonna hear some stuff. And, but my week has been exciting. It's actually been several weeks now because of this. It was a huge source of, anxiety, headache. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to build this, and looking into contractors and looking into where do I even buy things. And I'm really, shout out to Joel. You've been a huge help to me. He literally dropped a little bomb. He's just like, oh yeah, by the way, I was homeschooled, and as one of my classes, I built a house with my dad. I was like, of course you did. And why did you never tell me this earlier? Because that is really helpful. And
Yeah.
so
This man sounds way overqualified to build
yeah,
a simple wall in your house, man.
I was going to be YouTubing it up and just be like, I don't know, I'll start drilling here.
Oh man, whatever you do in life, never YouTube how to build a wall if you never build a wall.
Some guy in New Mexico is going to be like, I'll show you how to build a wall. Anyway, yes, it's been very exciting because it's coming together and I'm learning a ton. And I just feel like there's something really beautiful about working with my hands, working with another guy and learning from his expertise. And you know, maybe our daughter will never know what went into this wall. Maybe I'll tell her all the time, hey, see that screw right there? I did that. But it's really cool to just like build a safe place for her to thrive and grow and be safe. And yeah, it's very exciting. So that's me. That's my week. All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into it specifically, Sterre, with your story. Going to be doing 2 parts here. First, just hearing Sterre's story of belief, what he's gone through, what's changed along the way and where he's at now. Then we'll have a part 2 where we dig into some of the bigger topics that either come up in this podcast or things that hit us off the cuff. So why don't you start us off with, give us a picture of what you were raised with, your upbringing as far as religion, faith, spirituality.
Yeah. First off, I want to say like I really resonate with the goal and the aim of this podcast, just to start a conversation, and this is almost kind of like a social media buzzword, but it really is kind of crucial in any day and age, and kind of see behind your own bubble, basically, whatever that bubble may be. And it's so rare to actually find some ideas outside of your own bubble. And on the one hand, it's very easy. You just turn on a podcast, but on the other hand, it doesn't happen naturally. So yeah, it's about as good as a reason to start a podcast as I can imagine. So yeah, I'm totally down with that.
Appreciate that.
And for me, like yeah, being raised when it comes to religion, it wasn't a topic at all. It was almost like a yeah, it wasn't a topic. I imagine, for instance, I thought of this in preparation for this podcast. You have some thoughts. I had some thoughts, and like if I would tell my mom and dad right now, like yeah, I've gotten into Christianity, or I've turned Muslim, or whatever, what their reaction would be. And I imagine they would be, well, at least my mom would be like skeptical. Oh, I was like really? Are you sure? How did this happen? Which is fair enough in a way. Like I'm 35, 36 now. So it is a bit of an unusual corner to take. It would be an unusual corner to take. So in that sense, but I don't think they would be strongly opposed to it or something. They would, yeah, maybe not be explicitly supportive, but just like, well, okay, this is your thing, I guess now, and maybe, yeah, but yeah. And in that sense, I didn't feel like it was, I didn't feel like it was a foregone conclusion, but it never came up, basically. We had like some classes in school that taught us about religion and how to, how to think about the different perspectives of religion. And I think there was some kind of class discussion with actual pupils, my classmates that had a different faith.
Hmm.
But that wasn't transformative or anything. It was just kind of,
Right.
information.
Just almost like a survey. Here's what different people believe, kind of thing.
Yeah,
We'll
for
discuss
sure.
it on like an idea level.
Yeah, and of course there were some classmates that had different perspectives, but that fit very that fit into the discussion quite neatly. Like, I wasn't like, well, some in-depth sampling of perspectives or something.
So then, if you reflect back on just like how your parents taught you how to see the world, because this is, you know, one of the, it may be byproducts or the central point of religion. It's you kind of have a label, but there's also an overlay of this is how you see the world, and this is how humans came to be, and this is why we're on the earth, and this is how we should treat each other, and this is how you can figure out what is true, what is not true, and so different things like that. What were some of the standout lessons that you feel like you learned on how to see the world?
Yeah, I find this quite hard to distinguish. I have very few distinct memories that stand out that really are about. I imagine, I mean, I see the world in a certain way, and I'm definitely not self-taught from 5 years old or something. So, but it's hard to, for me, it's hard to find sort of the tipping point moments where this worldview came to be. So I imagine it was very subtle in a way, and it has to have been there for sure. And I do take pride in being self-taught in many things, but I'm really sure that didn't start from the womb. So that's.
I wonder too, even how you started with your introduction, this idea of self-betterment. You said interested, but even potentially obsessed. What were some of the influences that created that drive for you?
Yeah, good question. And on the one hand, I'm kind of opposed to overly psychologizing the past, like it was your mom at age 5 that did this, and then now you turned out to be a carpenter. I don't really, I feel that's very overly overanalyzed and kind of doesn't do justice to the complexity of the actual situation, and the diversity of influence that actually played a factor. And to pin it down to that thing, it might just be the straw that broke the camel's back, or
for sure.
Yeah. So for that self, yeah, well, it's probably, if I have to point to one thing, it's probably the kind of self-reliance. Was quite an emphasis, not a really explicit emphasis maybe, but an implicit emphasis on self-reliance and figuring things out for yourself and doing things for yourself, making things happen for yourself, and getting your stuff done. And I imagine that kind of played a role as well. Yeah, that doesn't seem like. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wanted to say, like, I really like your analogy that you just made, like, by psychological background, because I kind of really feel like that is mostly a big part. But the one you made, like, oh, because of age 5, now you're, and because something your mom did, now you're a carpenter. And I'm just imagining you just fixing floors all the time. Like, that plays a big role, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's hard to pinpoint, like, because this thing happened, then therefore but there is definitely maybe they're unexamined, but there's definitely messages. Even simple things like, well, yeah, I mean, self-reliance. That's interesting. I wonder if, yeah, there's the message that like, you you impact the change that you want to see.
Yeah.
Can't wait for anyone else to do it. We're not going to do it as parents, and so you decide who you want to be and how you treat people. And if there's something that's not going right, yeah, you have to be the one that kind of figures that out and comes with a way forward.
Yeah. I'm sure that's had an impact, and I'm sure it wasn't the only thing, but yeah, for sure.
So then you said something about skepticism. So was there a general sense in the home of like religions are kind of for other people? There's the Christian folks, that's a mosque, that's where people who believe in Islam worship. This is a synagogue. I don't know, maybe they pointed all the things. But then was it more just like an emphasis on rationalism, materialism, potentially, like the scientific method? This is the way we know what is true is by what science has taught us, versus something that's supernatural. Was there a skepticism of the supernatural within your upbringing?
Again, I don't recall any explicit, but I imagine there was, there's for instance almost no superstitions or things in my household, like and I imagine, I don't recall any conversation, but I can imagine maybe my mom being a bit cynical about some superstitions or something, or like or supernatural things. So I mentioned some subtle things like that, and maybe a slight version of some. And it's, again, I don't recall, but maybe I can imagine some aversion to some of the tenets of religion, for instance, when people attribute very significant things to a god or to divine intervention or something, and it might be kind of scoffed at or something.
Yeah, almost seem like they're abdicating certain responsibilities that they should be taking for their own life to it's like God's will. But like, no, you made that choice. Like, or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Over spiritualizing it potentially, or something like that.
Yeah, I could imagine being some aversion to that, and if there had been, then I definitely took to that. I resonate with that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool.
And of course the responsibility you mentioned is a big pet peeve of mine, where I see this kind of relinquishing responsibility to either the general outside world, or more specifically a deity or some kind of outside force. And that kind of annoy me at times if I sense it.
And describe that. Why is that annoying? Figuring out someone's pet peeve, that's always clarifying. But so keep going into that. Why does that irk you?
It seems to me like such a dead end of it basically it feels to me like you're putting yourself in a corner where you have very little other choice than to just sit back. And in all my limited life experience and the kind of experiences I've read or heard about for other people, that's definitely not the way to go in my experience. Like, taking more action is almost always giving you a better outcome. And of course you can make mistakes, but you can also work to correct the mistakes. And relinquishing this responsibility basically does the opposite. pushes you in a direction of being passive, and even worse, being helpless and feeling helpless. And that's some next level where you don't even feel like you could do something, and that's like another level of inaction, basically. That you're in a room and you don't even see the room has a door, so why you're not even gonna go look for it. So you're even one step further away from taking action and yeah, making it happen.
But one thing fascinated me because you introduced yourself as agnostic, and I'm agnostic as well. But do you believe in some kind of force right now, or
Yeah.
maybe not even force, maybe a form of God or something similar to that?
I I don't think you can call yourself agnostic if that were the case. If you're really gonna be really specific about what the word means. I think being agnostic is the I was gonna say the polite position to take, and I'm not sure how I thought of polite, but it is like I think it's the humble position to take. Like, and I don't feel particularly humble when saying this, which is kind of an interesting contradiction. Um, but it is saying I'm not 100% sure what's going on in that field. There are many options, and I do I do have a tendency to be more atheist in a way. Like but it seems like a pretty strong position to take. Um, but if I think for me that is sort of if you ask the man on the street to describe my position, he would probably say atheist. And yeah, I think being agnostic is just also adding like I have these strong intuitions and that I claim I can underpin with these and these reasons. But in the very end, I'm not totally sure. So I say I don't know for sure.
It sounds like you feel like that it's a, how do you say that, a small position to take in a fast universe to say there's no God, but you will not follow a belief. That's more what you're saying. Like it's too fast and too big to say, like, oh, it's created out of nothing, but at the same time you cannot really acknowledge the existence of a force that made it.
Well, yeah, some things I resonate with, and other things kind of scratch another pet peeve of mine.
This is great. Go into that.
Should definitely go to that. Like um, let's go straight into the pet peeve and see how it applies here. It is what I hear in kind of people that, for instance, say they're either spiritual or even call themselves religious, and they do this with this following words. They say the universe is so big, usually in combination with, I think I've heard Jody say this in a previous episode, even maybe one of the first episodes. Like the universe is so big, and it would be so sad if this life is the only life we get. There has to be something out there. And to me, this reeks of very sloppy kind of reasoning, and I don't mean to offend you.
Get him. Get him.
Oh no.
but this is and the sloppy reasoning is a pet peeve of mine. It's like saying I don't know what's out there, and then you kind of interject your own, and then you make the conclusion, well, anything goes. No. You're saying the universe is big, there's lots of options, and is something totally different than just inserting your own favorite kind of theory in place. You should stay at the actual boundary. Like you say the universe is big and there's lots of options, and that's it. And that doesn't mean, well, there has to be something, and then usually interjecting your own force or whatever. I think that doesn't fly for me. So yeah.
Mm.
And I heard a few things in the sentence you just said as well, and other things I totally resonate with, and other things that kind of gave me a little taste in my mouth of what I just described.
Oh no, he just vomited.
He just vomited
like,
a little bit in his mouth, Joey. That's what he just said. Joey, do you have a rebuttal? Do you have any thoughts on what you mean by agnosticism?
No, I totally get what Sterre is saying, because at one point it's like, yeah, of course there's a is there the thing that resonates most with me is or resonates, it's the thing you say about boundaries, like staying with a certain boundary. I feel like that is the whole specific thing about belief, is like, if you take a boundary and you say this is it, like it's a fast universe, but if we die it's over, like that's a boundary that we should follow, technically speaking, because we don't know anything else. But there's also the option that it's not it, and that's something that keeps hopping up in my mind all the time. Like, is it, or is it a boundary? Do we need to take everything in, or is there another life, or is there another option? So I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's very contradicting to say like, oh, the universe is vast, so there should be more, and then it ends up that it's all empty rocks in space, because that option is totally there.
Well,
Yeah,
go for it.
let me go for the. I just realized there's a second half to my pet peeve.
Yes,
Go
for the
go
kill.
go. I'm bad peeving today. Yay!
Go for the kill.
And the let me see if I can make this kind of wrap my head around this. The you said empty rocks. Yeah, that was that was my trigger. I have an empty rock view now. No, once you say like, once you die, there's nothing, and that's it. And I think I've heard you, Joey, say on the previous episode, like, yeah, that's so depressing. But is it? That's your interpretation. Like, I can't imagine, and I've read and spoken to people that find that like exhilarating. Like, this is your one, to quote Eminem, this is your one shot, your one opportunity.
Are you gonna take it or let it slip away?
Yeah, exactly. So and then the fact that it would be depressing would also serve as sort of an underpinning for there has to be the universe can't be depressing. There has to be something. I strongly oppose that idea. Basically, this is like your wish for a happy ending, and then projecting this on a universe that has nothing to do with you potentially. Yeah, this is pet peeve part 2. Yeah.
No, you know what? I totally get what you're saying, because if you live a full life and you take everything out of that, that should be good enough. I totally get it. The reason I said it in the previous episode, and I recall very specifically, like giving the example for babies that are stillborn or people that die very young. That's why it was depressing to me, because there's so many people in this world that don't get a chance.
For sure.
So if it's nothing, that is sad. But if you get a full life, no, that I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and whether it's sad or not, in both cases, is not a reason, at least for me, and I feel so strongly about it that I would say it shouldn't be a reason to support your theory about the universe. Your sense of justice or injustice might very well, and I think very likely, have nothing to do with the universe. All things we know about the universe is, as far as I'm aware, points to doesn't give a fuck about justice.
Yeah.
Or right or wrong.
Or fairness.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to get this pet peeve part
Air
one
it
and two
out.
of. But
Air it
yeah,
out.
yeah,
No, this is so good, and this is really fun. Yeah, I love even. I mean, this shows how inadequate labels can be, which is why it's kind of fun to have people label themselves in the beginning, and then we
yeah,
can kind of unpack it, because you can both say agnostic and have, yeah, totally, well, not totally different, but just different ways of seeing that. Um, and this is totally going to lead into this idea of determinism that we are might get into this podcast in this episode or later, but how much control do we have in this life, and how much does the universe care about us? But then right now what we're seeing is it's really easy for us to have what we see, what we can see about the universe, and we are so finite. We're so small in the grand scheme of things. We are like a dust on dust. We're so tiny. And yet we as humans have these constructs of fairness and yeah, righteousness, justice,
justice. Yeah,
what I deserve, and we can and then we kind of judge the universe by saying this person was taken too soon, or this person's cards were sucky and it's not fair, or it's me, it's not fair what I've been given, what life has dealt me, my
yeah.
shit hand.
And the opposite, like there are people that we judge to be morally awful, and they seem to get a great hand.
Yeah,
It goes
totally.
both ways. Yeah.
Yep. And so it's interesting. Sted, I don't know if this is what you're saying to Joey, and I don't know, Joey, if you can see this, but it's the, okay, wait, so some context. I used to work at Oregon State, and I would do these surveys with students. I did nearly, I don't even know, 300 to 400 of these. Just me interviewing individual students, strangers coming up. I'd ask the same questions, 5 questions that wrap up someone's worldview. So it's like, where did humans come from? Like, how did we get here? Why are we here? Purpose. What's the world's greatest problem? What's the solution to the world's greatest problem? And what happens to us when we die? So I'd ask these over and over and over and over again. It was really interesting to see majority of students said we are here because of evolution, and kind of aligning themselves with a scientific evolutionary progression of how we evolved, and there's nothing supernatural happening. It was just genetic mutations evolving over time. So very like rationalism hypothetically there. And then kind of, if they were intellectually honest, the purpose they would hit with like, there is no purpose because it's random. But and then all the way at the end, so they'd kind of say, yeah, I'm this rational person, and I believe in evolution, and it's kind of what we see is what we get. And then we'd come to the destiny part, what happens when we die, and they would majority of the time say probably nothing, but I'm hoping, or but I'm wishing that there's something more, that there's heaven, that this isn't just the end. And so that's kind of the contradiction that often happens. It's like wanting to be someone who just sees the world for what you see it as, randomness, insignificance, and yet something in us that longs for significance, for orderliness, for a sense of fairness, justice. Karma is another kind of thing that people long for, because like you're saying, it's a sucky feeling to think that the universe doesn't care about us, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah. It's like, for me, like what was the second question you asked him?
Well, wait, out of what I just said?
Yeah, at the survey. Yeah.
Oh, the survey. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think I just rambled. I don't even know if I asked a question. But so it was, where did we come from and why are we here?
Yeah, the why over here. Yeah. For me, if you'd ask that question to me, I would go to, I would probably ask you what you meant, and you'd probably say something, well, it's up to you or something, and I would be still at the same place. But for me, it's clear that there's 2 answers. Like, the why can apply to at least 2 clear fields, like the universal why and the personal why. And I think they're all very fair interpretations of the questions. Like, why are we here? In the universal sense, um, would would be the answer you just described earlier. Like, there's no real thing. We just came here uh, because of evolution. But the personal why is individual, and it can be um, to fulfill my purpose or something, or it can be a personal why. And I think that personal why can be aligned with the very last question you talked about, the wishing for something bigger. And um, I imagine these two kind of interact, and how you answer the one and actually see that there is a personal why also changes how you see and answer the last question.
Yeah.
I think these are two are very closely connected.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of how you would see the connection, or how someone might answer that you see them connected, or even for yourself?
I imagine if you answer with a more personal why, for instance, like I don't think I have a great personal overarching goal for my life, but I can imagine, like, let's make it easy. A very stereotypical driven person that's maybe a professional athlete, like very gifted, or like a very talented musician. He or she can have a more, I imagine, a more clearly defined why. Like, I'm here to play the violin to the best of my abilities to bring joy to as many people as I can, and to move them for as long as I can. Very, very clear why, personal why. Still not a universal why. The universe doesn't give a shit about violin, I imagine. And and I imagine there would be a different view on the final question, like which was the kind of,
where do you think we're going when we die?
Yeah, where do you think we're going when we die?
What happens to us when we die?
Yeah. I imagine you could still have like hopes for what would happen, but I imagine you could also have, like, well, if you do believe, like Eminem believes, that this was where your one shot and one opportunity to play the violin, then um, you maybe feel more satisfied that you did this, and you made the most of it, or at least to how you were capable of making the most of it. Yeah. And you could still hope for an afterlife, of course. It is kind of nice. I do have a strong intuition that that much of religion is kind of based from this hope of something more. The hope for a happy ending in some way, whatever that means to you, whether it be just happiness or justice or all of the above. I have a strong intuition that's kind of at the base of many of the religious intuitions and kind of structures we've seen over the ages, basically.
I find your why very interesting, like why we're here, because I interpret that way smaller. Because as someone that had dealt with depression and meeting a lot of people that helped me out of that, it's like maybe their purpose, and not their complete purpose, but a part of their purpose is to get certain people out of that slump, to help certain people. Like, it's not their only goal in life and not their only reason they're on this planet, but probably part of it. I feel like you can define it in very small ways, to either help people, or like what you said, to find a talent and to do something with that talent. Like, it really depends on the person and the purpose, what they're doing with their life.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think there's something elegant about kind of keeping it small. and um, yeah, not being overly dramatic with this. And while talking about this, I also kind of had the realization of how culturally dependent this personal why would be. If you'd ask someone from the Middle East, they'd probably have a stronger emphasis on maybe family values or community values. I notice I'm a very Western. I give a very Western about talents and skills and development, and it's a very Western kind of style of answering. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that goes. If you break it down, how closer it comes to cultural values and personal values.
How would each of you answer that? The personal, why are you here? That you kind of already jumped on it even in your introduction, but this idea of self-betterment, do you feel like that's wrapped up in yours?
You're asking me?
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
How would you answer that purpose question?
Yeah. I also feel like I don't. Okay, in my mind, in an ideal world, if you know your purpose, you will also get motivation and drive from that purpose.
Totally.
I don't think this is a universal law. That's how I picture the mind of someone who has this figured out. And I don't think there's a necessary rule that this is the case. So in that sense, I don't feel like I have a drive in that way. So in that way, I would say I don't have such a clear picture. But for me, it is a strong drive to try to improve myself and my surroundings and kind of build a bigger base, which also happens to support the people around me. So yeah.
Yeah, there's like an idea of bettering yourself, but as well as bettering those around you, kind of in concentric circles that reach obviously you and your significant other, but then your family, but then neighbors or friends, or like that network.
And of course, it's easier and easier to have farther reach to these days. Like if you write an amazing article, then that can be spread to dozens of communities. It's not necessarily a concentric circle. Like it's not the next layer up. It's just a whole different blob of people somewhere else that might get inspired by this.
Totally.
And a podcast like this is, for instance, a great example.
Yeah, I'm already feeling that on a microcosm level where, you know, and I'm grateful for Facebook as much as I bash it, but, you know, because I put this out there, a friend who I grew up with. I mean, we went on retreats together and adventures through our church together, and we like went through church youth groups. So as I don't even know, probably 11, 12-year-olds on into through to 18, and kept a friendship, but then also just in different worlds. But we came back together through this because he's like, hey, I'm listening, really enjoyed it.
Wow.
Would love to talk with you about it. I've actually been kind of re-engaging with my sense of faith, and I'd love to maybe be a guest. And I've gotten that now from him, but also a former teacher. She's like, I can really relate to this whole in between theater and religion. So you two, you know who you are. Maybe we'll try to have you on. But like, how cool is that? And I was just really humbled. I was like, something I wasn't anticipating, but that dialogues here creates dialogues here and helps people to find a space to keep, sharing and processing. I was like, that is so cool. I mean,
that's amazing.
That potential.
That is really cool.
Joey, how would you answer that idea of what's your personal purpose? It's okay if it's not like, this doesn't need to be something that you nail yourself into for the rest of it, but like, what gives you purpose today?
Oh man, if I have to be honest, like the only thing, it's the one thing I want to let go of completely because it's been hindering my whole life, but it's also the one thing that I keep finding myself into. It's the role of helping everyone around me with whatever happens. It's one of the biggest hindrances because the only thing you do with your life is trying to help everyone. Like someone comes up to you and you're like, okay, how can I help you? Even though you don't have the power to help this person. Like, for example, like I just said, like in the depressing part, like me and my best friend, we met through therapy, and we've been trauma bonding, as they say on Instagram, and but we're still very good friends, and we help each other from time to time, and that's a good thing. But I do that with everyone around me, and I feel like that has become my purpose, so to speak, in a way. But it's also very sad because my purpose is linked to everyone else. So if I can't help anyone, I feel I am honestly a bit down if I can't help other people. So at the same time, I feel like it's a good thing that if I might maybe find a job that connects to that, but I also feel like I need to find another type of purpose so that it's more self-fulfilling and not constantly waiting for other people to fulfill that need or purpose.
Man, that's good. Thanks for your honesty, Joey. Yeah, I like what you said there. And it's cool that you have the awareness of this is something that's very noble, but can be self-destructive because it eats itself. It constantly needs. And so without a knowledge of capacity, what capacity do I have to give while still self-preservation, preserving me and my energy and my time, and not just giving to the point where I come up empty. And then once you're empty, you can hit resentment. You can be like, F the world. You're like, you just hold up and you're just like, anime only. And
Hey.
sorry, too close now. But that's great. So it's almost like more awareness on your capacity actually helps you help people better, as opposed to the seemingly noble idea of just helping. So it sounds like you're already growing in that way.